Yeah, you heard the name in case you ever forget. That's why I floss my chain. Forget spitting insane. The poet spit malignant, way beyond sick. I'm something like the plague. I'm something that you don't want to mess with. Thank you all for watching. Welcome back to the Poetically Correct channel. We have a returning guest, Dr. Felicia Heath, who was on the channel a little bit ago to announce her first book that she's produced and written and getting all sorts of awards and bestseller nominations and things of that nature for. And so Felicia's back to kind of talk to us about the next part of this book, which is going to be the audio part. So, hey, Felicia, welcome back. How have you been doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me again.
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm doing good. So I guess we just gonna get right into things since you've already been on this show. But I think I wanted to start off with how's life changed for you since you've become like a new author and you've been going on book signings and things like that. How's that changed things for you?
It's changed things a lot. It's really brought like a brand new dimension of my life. Seems like a whole new angle has developed since the book has been published. It's helped me connect to people on an elevated level because I exposed, so many vulnerable moments throughout the spirit of a hummingbird. If you
Mhm.
read my story, you no longer have to spend time getting to know who I am before deciding if
Right.
we have common experiences or perspectives. We can just be ourselves. And even for those I've had the pleasure of meeting before they read the book, like at a book signing, I introduce myself immediately with my truth. So small talk becomes irrelevant and conversations are more genuine,
Mhm.
even in that brief, lapse of time. So I love that connection. As a new author, being credible and reviewed has set off like a cascade of many opportunities for growth. So
Yeah,
I'm learning a lot since the book has been released.
that's awesome. And any of those conversations, have you learned any more about like yourself or
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think writing something down and letting someone read it is very different than having the conversation live. There's so many more emotions and different paths that the conversation can go. And I learn something new, I believe every single time, retelling the story, adding layers, dissecting it. A different person's question might make me look at it a different way.
Mhm.
It's been it's been enlightening.
And talk to us a little bit about where did the audio thought come from? Like, did you know back when you were writing a book, did you always know you wanted to turn this into an audio book?
I did. Absolutely. I feel like the audiobook has changed the literary world. For audiences that can't find time to sit down and read, now you can still enjoy literary content.
Hmm.
And for those that have long commutes for work or travel, audiobooks are really good entertainment.
Hmm.
I have always been a fan of audiobooks, and I'm always reading one book, with the pages, and then I'm always listening to another while I'm driving to work. So
Okay.
it's really allowed me to get through many books. So being a fan of audiobooks myself, I knew that I wanted to create one to expand my audience as much as possible.
Okay. What do you think has been the most challenging part of doing the audio book? And then what was also the best part? Like, and I guess kind of compared to doing, because I imagine when you were, or talk us through this process, like, are there some parts of the book that were easier to write? And then when you did the audio, it was like harder to like get through for whatever reason?
Yeah, the I think the hardest part of the process was listening to myself for final production. I don't know many people that enjoy their own voices, but after recording, I had to sit down with my headphones, listen to myself read the entire book out loud on more than one occasion, which felt like a form of torture. I would say the best part was just the learning process. It's very interesting. Not a lot of people understand that industry, so it was an opportunity for me to learn. I did a lot of research, asked a lot of questions. So I had a fairly good idea of what I was going into.
Hmm.
There were definitely parts that surprised me reading out loud were emotionally more difficult than I imagined. There's like one part in the book where I'm raiding the room, my parents' bedroom, trying to find out more information that they were telling me. And I stumble upon a photo of me and my father. Writing that was not that difficult, but for some reason, I really did get choked up reading that part out loud.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And there were a lot of things in the book that I imagine elicited a lot of different emotions from you as an author, and especially because it's not like you're writing about something you don't know about. I mean, it's your own life and lived experience. So I was wondering, like, what type of feedback did you get from, I guess, starting with family, that you mentioned in the book? I know your sister was in there a lot, and your mom and stuff, and dad. And
Right.
did, I guess, did you tell them about this before? Like, hey, I'm gonna write a book and I'm using you in it, or what was that like? And how did they respond when they actually read it?
My mom definitely knew. 'Cause I interviewed my mother for the book. So if you read the book, it flashes back, and there's a lot of narrative
Hmm.
that is her story and only her story before I was even in existence. So she knew about the book. She didn't read it prior to publication. And part of the memoir process when you're writing a nonfiction is that you have to obtain releases from people that, especially if you use their real names, you have to obtain releases. So essentially, everybody that I could get releases from knew they were going to be in the book. My family and my closest friends were all okay with using their real names, and everyone was really supportive. I got a lot of love.
Hmm.
Everyone, I would say, except for my husband, who knows and knows all of me,
Right.
discovered something about me that they didn't know before reading the book. And ultimately, I think my mom, my sister, my brother were very proud, and it certainly brought more meaning to our relationships. As far as my dad, he hasn't read it. But he still had a reaction, prior to even the plans. I had told him I was writing a book, and he discouraged the whole process. He didn't want it released. I think some of it out of fear, but I'm not sure. But he was not. He was the only one that knew about the book, knew about being in the book, and was not supportive.
Hmm. Okay. And yeah, and I know you talked a lot in the book about y'all's relationship and how it was during that time and now. And, you know, what was it like to recall these moments when you're like a little kid, as an adult now looking back at it?
Most of the memoir are, trying times, difficult, dark memories. I buried a lot of it because I was scared. So recalling it was very much like conquering a fear.
Hmm.
I had to mentally, emotionally prepare before sitting down to try to remember the details. Um, in the book, I think the most difficult part to write was there is an incident that happens among me and my cousins, and one cousin in particular uh, that takes E, and some stuff happens,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
without knowing the story. And in the book, I still didn't realize what truly happened. I mean, if you read it,
Hmm.
we can imply, but my mind blocked it out so deeply as a survivor,
Yeah,
which is how trauma works, right?
yeah.
But even hashing out the details, all of the details in that entire scene leading up to that part that I just can't get to was extremely difficult.
Mhm.
But very like, overcoming a fear, I had to try to understand it. and try to dismantle the shame that came with it until I got to a point where I had to ask myself, what was I so afraid of? You know, what is this? How is this telling this story at this point of my life as an adult going to do to me? Not much, right? It's not going to affect me in a negative way or push my trajectory to where I'm going significantly.
Yeah.
But I could gain a lot of insight and to some point, perhaps even forgiveness and understanding and peace by doing it. So it was hard, but I also wanted to give my readers that the most authentic, version of myself.
Yeah, definitely. And I definitely remember reading that. That was actually going to be one of my questions, but I think you said in the book that you had hidden that so deep in your
Yeah.
subconsciousness. And so I was wondering, like, how was that to like recall that experience? And especially something that like you said, you had just hidden for so long and now it's just kind of coming out.
After I was able to actually recall it and write it and make it into something artistic, like a book, an audiobook, and having to edit it and develop it and reread it out loud and getting through it, I've overcome it and I've accepted it. I'm at peace with it. And hopefully it can, by telling it, and it can help someone else too.
Yeah, and so is that really the main message that you wanted to convey in this book? I mean, aside from, and definitely I think you're a very strong woman from not only all the stuff that you endured and went through, actually being just a strong person, because as a kid, I couldn't imagine, some of this stuff you talked about was like survival, just having to like wake up and just go and you don't know what's going on. And these creative games you invented with your sister to play to just try to, I mean, most kids are outside in the playground and you're like, I guess, yeah, on the run, so to speak. And so, what other message do you want to convey to other people reading the book?
There are so many messages. And honestly, the message, I think it's repurposed depending on the reader. But the ultimate message I want to convey is that your past does not have space in your present life. So most people would consider me as someone who beat the odds, overcame things that were presented to me that seemed insurmountable, poverty, trauma, abuse, and continue to create a life of happiness and success and purpose. I did this because I didn't allow my troubled past to have space in my present life. It
Mhm.
was never an excuse or a barrier to moving forward. We all have our own stories. We have to find the power in them, give that power, light, and strength, and uplift ourselves rather than let them hold us back. So I want to convey that our past is important, but it's a lot like art. It's beautiful, it's intricate, it brings color. It can be difficult to comprehend. We appreciate that masterpiece on some days more than others, but the art is not alive.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. And I think the last question I have for you is just from coworkers or, random people, any memorable reactions that you've had so far during this journey of yours, or people who haven't known you as well as family and friends, any types of reactions that stuck with you or
Yeah, most of all the reactions I've been lucky enough to say are really positive. I think that there's one memory that sticks out at my second book signing at Barnes Noble. There was a mom and a daughter, a woman of color. the girl was probably 13 or so. They picked up the book from the stand and went on browsing through Barnes and Noble. And later on, they came back around, and the mother had, I think, probably read the prologue and was like, "So, did you pass your medical boards? I need to know." I went on to tell her yes, and she asks me many questions about my professional journey. And as we were talking, I could see like some inspiration, like lighting up in her daughter's eyes.
Mhm.
And during our conversation, the mom kept nodding at her, like, see, like you are capable. And I don't know what the message in between them was, but it seems like something along those lines. And the mom was going to read it first and then make sure that it was appropriate for her daughter.
Mhm.
But it did bring me like a deep sense of gratitude, happiness, I don't know, excitement, enthusiasm, that maybe reading my story could somehow make this young girl believe in herself in a way that she hadn't before.
Right.
I won't forget that like small shift in energy that was literally happening right there and then. It was a very, powerful moment.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing too. Like you never, I guess, realize how much your situation can impact somebody from a, whole completely different generation. I think everybody goes through a struggle, and like you were saying, your
Yeah.
past doesn't have to be part of your future and your present and stuff. So that's great.
Yeah.
Inspirational. Very inspirational. So
Thank you.
what do you want to do next from here? Like the audiobook is pretty much out, right?
Yes, you can pre-order it now on Barnes and Noble online, and it will also be available on all, audiobook platforms, as well as Amazon, Audible, Barnes and Noble.
Great. And y'all definitely have to check that out. I'm excited. So I guess, usually one thing we do on this show is how poetically correct are you? So I'm gonna try to put you on the spot here. Is there a part of your audiobook you can share with us so people will know kind of what they're getting into?
Sure. All right. Ready?
Yep.
If everything's good, I'll be out in 7, 8 months, a year at the most. Okay, how sure are you about this? I went through the calendar in my head. I'm sure. My parole officer is working on it too. Everything looks good so far. Tell your mommy, okay? And tell Amanda and Brian that dad's coming home. They don't know? You tell them. Tell them I'm getting out. I'm coming home and I'm going to take care of everything. We're going to be a family again. All of us? A family? I repeated. Yes, Felicia. Daddy's coming home. We hung up. I launched myself off my yoga ball and flopped onto my bed. I stared at the ceiling, wondering what had just happened. A family again. I repeated the phrase in my mind a few times. The first time, the thought left me feeling empty. They were just 3 meaningless words. The second time, I was disgusted. He was a liar, abusive, and at most a deadbeat father. There was nothing romantic about the idea of him with his 3 bastard children. A wave of nausea made me feel flushed. The third time, I wrinkled my forehead in bewilderment. Us, a family again? Was this like a second chance, a chance to be free of dysfunction and filled with love? The idea was painfully wonderful. A mother, a father, 2 daughters, and a son with a forgivable past and a future together.
That's great. That's great. And I think too, that's one of the things I'm interested in now is like how you read some of the stories. Cause like when you read something, you in your mind have it like one way, but then actually hearing
Yeah.
somebody read it, it's another way. So I can already
Yeah.
remember that part of the book. So I can already tell, it's gonna be great to hear your actual voice and energy over the events that happen. So
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely harder than I thought it was going to be, but it was important that because it was a memoir that I read it, you know?
Yeah,
Nobody else could do it on my behalf the way I would want it to. Because
right.
people do like hire narrators. But I ended up getting a director, which helped guide me as well. So she would say, reread this part. You need to emphasize this part
Hmm.
as well. So she would say, reread this part. You need to emphasize this part,
Hmm.
reflect on this word so that it is portrayed like the best way
Yeah.
to the listener. So
And so knowing what you know now, do you think you'll do another one, or would you do another one in the future after you keep, promoting and doing this,
yeah. Uh, I don't think that I'm done with this book in
Right.
the sense that like there's still so much more potential in my opinion, and it's opening doors and pathways that I didn't even think about previously. But I want to make this book into a movie. Like that is the ultimate goal. Like I've sent it to a bunch of producers. I'm trying to find like a screenwriter. I'm networking like crazy
That'd be awesome.
because I wrote it with intention to feel like a movie in the sense that there's a lot of dialogue, right? Like there's people just talking and you come to your own conclusion about some of the things that happen without me reflecting too much like a diary.
Right, right.
So I did write it with that intention, and that to me, a movie, like you don't even need to know how to read.
Yeah, right,
So my book has limitations in that sense. A movie could touch so many more lives and make so many more impressions. Right now, you have to be able to read.
right, right. Well, that's so true. That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be amazing. Why not, take it all the way?
I want to. It would be difficult, but that would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And as far as another book, like I'm so into this book right now that I can't even think about it. I don't think it's impossible. Like I love to write. And there are people that are like, well, we want to know in the next chapter what happens more so in your adult life.
Right.
I don't find that part of my life very interesting. I find it very traditional. So I'm like, I don't know if I would be motivated to write it. I would love to write like somebody else's story, I think, that
Yeah.
has an interesting story and shine light on that. I think I'd be a good ghostwriter.
Yeah, yeah.
And then or write an entirely different book, like a self-improvement book or like a parenting book, maybe some people have mentioned me doing like via the blog, the mommy blog.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but right now it's all about Spirit of a Hummingbird.
I understand that, and it should be because it's a great story. Um, it has so many different emotions and parts to it, and I think too, it's great to see your trajectory on this from going from just writing a book, or I guess just having a blog, right, and then writing a book, and now doing the
Yeah,
audio. Hopefully, too, I'll hear about a movie too. I
yeah.
want tickets. I want
It,
tickets to see it.
front row seats, you'll have them.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So yeah, congratulations on all of your success so far. Um, it's a privilege again, and powerful book. And make sure everybody goes out there and gets the audio. And last thing, Felicia, if you just want to tell people how to find you on social media.
You can find me on Instagram, Latin for happiness underscore MD. My blog is www.mixedfeelingsmama.com. And then the book can be found anywhere books are sold.
All right. So we look forward to that. Thank you for joining. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all on the next Poetically Correct channel. Peace.
Thank you.